I've always felt that it's strange the most successful construction toy in the world, Lego, doesn't seem to be able to create a game based on construction that is successful. If you've ever read the book Microserfs by Douglas Adams, that's the plot. A group of Microsoft engineers create an indie game that is basically Lego in digital format. I suppose in reality, we have that with things like Minecraft. Difficult to see how Lego would top that, really, other than giving you a bunch of digital bricks and saying go crazy. They have tried it a few times with some more construction-based games, but they've never really felt comprehensive or had a clear direction. There was a Lego World game that I played. I kind of lament that, but it somewhat clouded my view of the Traveller's Tales games, which are very well made, and Lego, weirdly for a construction toy, has become a really quite narratively driven IP with its Harry Potter, Star Wars, even its own Ninjago efforts to create its own narratives. And so it makes sense that the games would lean into that. Its humor is one of the things as well. Lego broadly just continues to surprise and evolve in ways that other toys that have been around for such a long time don't. Watching the cutscenes for this game and watching the story unfold, this is in some ways better than the movie. It's more concise, it's more to the point. I like the characters better. I like the voice actor for young Anakin in this game more than I liked the movie. I liked Anakin as a petulant teenager a little bit better. They cut out some of the most cringy bits. I felt like this is a fan edit of the movies, the prequels, that is improving them no end for me. But in terms of how can they evolve the gameplay of the Star Wars Lego games, I feel like they've done that with this particular one, and it's a focus on the characters. I feel like the earlier entries in this Lego Star Wars series were very much about the levels and about the puzzling. You were pulled back from the action to a certain extent when you compare it to this one. And the differences between the characters were not functionally that great. Mechanically, a lot of the characters played the same, with some perfunctory differences, but really it's about switching between characters to do different things and activate certain things within a level. The difference between that and this is difficult to pin down, but it's got something to do with zooming into the characters being mechanically a lot more interesting, so a lot more combat abilities that you're in control of, dodges, parries, combos, force abilities. All these things meld together to give the feeling of controlling one of these Lego Star Wars characters a lot more. They make it a lot more satisfying than it was before, and you feel that there's a big difference between the various character classes, and there are a huge number of them. I felt I must say in this review that if this were not Lego, it would be the Star Wars game that I've wanted. As much as I like the Fallen Order game, I don't like the fact that you just play one character in that. I've always wanted a Lego, getting mixed up, a Star Wars sandbox, a universe that I can just jump into with tons of characters that I can play, and play it in the way I feel, I can gravitate towards the characters that interest me. This game does it. It sounds like an indictment in that I'm saying that the Lego aspect is some kind of a negative. It's not. If anything, it gives this game a focus that a sandbox Star Wars games might not otherwise have, and one that we appreciate and like: the aesthetic of Lego, the humor of Lego, the intangible sort of playfulness of Lego. That gives this Star Wars universe a character all its own, and one I appreciate 100%. The focus of going through the game, collecting studs, collecting special bricks that unlock abilities, that unlock characters. That's a big draw for me. So that's one of the reasons that I like this so much. It compels me to play through the story mode. Sometimes you feel like the additional aspects of like an open world sandbox game, which this has, is sort of sandbox light in that beyond the story mode you can revisit areas and you can wander around in free mode. very much like GTA. That gives you a lot of freedom, but also incentive to play through the story mode. If you think about GTA 5, let's use that as an example. There's not much reason to play through the story mode of GTA. You don't get much benefit for doing that in the multiplayer version once you jump into the online version. In this game, you really do. You unlock a lot of the characters that you're going to play, a lot of the abilities that you're going to play. You get a lot of the resources that you want to unlock those characters. So you really feel like the first run through the game, appreciating the story, but I'm also working towards the point at which the entire game will unlock, and I'll be able to just have fun unlocking characters, unlocking vehicles, unlocking all this stuff. So I mentioned how satisfying the characters are to control, and they really are. You start off with the Jedi, as would be expected, and the combat feels really good. It feels meaty when you're doing it. It feels like the characters are responsive. It's a lot of fun to do the dodges. You have to wait. It's not challenging necessarily. It's more fun to do. So there are not many situations in which you really need to time your counters, like I'm using Fallen Order as an example, but it's that's a skill-based game. I would call this a fun-based game. You could run up to that battle droid and just whack it over the head, repeatedly pressing X, or you could opt to juggle them in the air and use force in the middle of your combo to knock them down. You can wait and do a counter if you would like to, but you kind of doing them not because you need to do them, but because it's fun to do them. It's a game that maximizes fun, I would say, over skill. And if you're looking for something that's going to really challenge you, this is not the game. But if you're looking for something that is just a fun sandbox to play in, this is. Graphically, it's a lot more impactful than the original games. I think the change in perspective is good. You almost feel like you're over the shoulder of the character. It's a lot more intimate. And I've always been taken by the very intelligent approach to how they render the worlds in Lego games. If everything in the game were made of Lego, then the worlds that the characters are inhabiting might not resonate quite as realistically. So when you're walking through Tatooine, there are Lego stalls that are made of Lego bricks, there are Lego towers, there are Lego satellite dishes and stuff. But those are decorations around the bones of the world, which are rendered very realistically. And I think what that does is it pulls you into the familiarity of the world in an almost subconscious way. If this were pure Lego Tatooine, then it wouldn't feel quite as immersive. But because they render the brick of the huts in a realistic fashion, you really feel like you're visiting these Star Wars locales. And I think it works. It's weird once you realize it. Some of this is not Lego and some is, but I think it's done deliberately, and I think it's very effective. Nothing majorly technical to point out. It ran smoothly for the most part. There were a couple of times when the frame rate suffered. The Droid Factory on Geonosis, for me, an obvious example when things started to chug. I think that's an optimization issue. Hopefully they'll fix that up at some point in the future. Definitely a game that is designed for controller. It would feel weird playing this on a keyboard and mouse. And I actually enjoy that as a primarily PC game. I like the novelty of playing with controller and a game that is definitely designed for it. I'm not fighting against that any longer and haven't been for a number of years. I think it's fun to play on a controller when it's the correct game for a controller, and this is one of those. Hard to talk about sound and things like that in a Star Wars game. That it's one of those aspects that's almost always good because they have that huge library of Star Wars music and sound effects to draw upon, so it's excellent. I think the voice acting is something that is uniquely good to this game. A good balance between them sounding like the actors in the movies and having a twist on it so that they can go a little bit silly, like Palpatine. Sounds like Palpatine, but he's silly Palpatine. The Obi-Wan voice actor is fantastic. I'm not sure if he's the guy who does the voice in the cartoons, but it may very well be. I didn't encounter any situations where I felt like that's not the character that it's supposed to be. They tread that line between giving themselves wiggle room to do different things with the characters, have them be funny, and also them resonate as the characters they're supposed to be. And as I say, very funny. I'm one of those people who doesn't have a high opinion of the prequels and the sequels. I don't want to dog on them But I do feel like when some talented writers tackle the characters, they can do things that the films didn't do. And as I said at the beginning, I feel like I liked Anakin in this. I feel like some of the characters that felt perfunctory or annoying in the movies and the sequels, the Lego game made me like them. So I think that's just good acting, good storytelling, good writing. So broadly speaking, a very fun game. It's been a long time coming. I think it's a considered and a successful evolution of those Traveller's Tales Lego games. And if you're a fan of those, I think you will like the direction they've taken this in. You have a lot more freedom, tons of collectibles, a lot of fun to control the characters. But if you're not already a fan, I would say this game is the one to jump in. There's no reason to play the other Star Wars games. This one does Star Wars Lego games by Traveller's Tales. This one does what all of them do, but better. So just start here. Thank you for listening to my review. I've been Napyet, and I'll see you next time.